The Romans are by and large known for their extraordinary commitments to legislative issues, workmanship, science, and their obvious military power. Yet that antiquated human advancement didn't turn out to be so prosperous without the assistance of control through dread. On the other side, we can see a savage preference for keeping their kin in accordance with dangerous and horrendous disciplines, of which they even celebrated with displays. Today, we will go on an outing through the roads of the old Roman realm to find the punishments endured by the individuals who disregarded any regulation. Welcome to Story Time. How are crucifixions in old Rome? After hearing this word, many will follow their recollections back to the tale of Jesus Christ, the Christian God who passed on because of his own kin, persevering through an extraordinary difficulty loaded with torment and enduring to save every one of us. From here, the picture of the cross turned into an image of the Christian confidence. However, the introduction of this discipline goes back a few centuries before this occasion, exactly in the 6th century BC, and was not a Roman development. However, began in Assyria, a Mesopotamian realm that involved its detainees. Execution was taken on by various people groups with their own varieties. Nonetheless, the main significant appearance of this strategy for execution in the Roman realm was in the 4th century BC, when the head Alexander the Extraordinary, later the attack of Tyre in Phoenicia, requested the torturous killing of in excess of 2,000 individuals to act as an illustration to his adversaries. Its prevalence developed until it was embraced as a component of the disciplines that the Romans forced on slaves, liberated men, renegades, privateers, and foes without qualification old enough or orientation. Even kids were executed. However long they had perpetrated a demonstration against Rome, or were the offspring of somebody who carried out the wrongdoing, the ones in particular who were protected from this brutal strategy for torment and execution were Roman residents. They partook in a specific honor that precluded them from being rebuffed in a particularly embarrassing manner. The couple of special cases permitted were for the individuals who truly hurt Rome, or fighters who resisted orders and abandoned from fight. Dissimilar to the execution of Jesus Christ, the Romans were not generally in that frame of mind of scourging their denounced before every torturous killing. This was just held for the people who created extraordinary scorn. What was normal was that every detainee conveyed his own cross pillar to the spot of execution. Once at the area, the individual's garments were eliminated, and he was affixed to the cross through ropes and long nails that went through his body, as well as the wood. As opposed to prevalent thinking, individuals were nailed through their lower legs and wrists, since ongoing investigations exhibited the failure of the hands and feet to help the heaviness of the human body. With the cross upstanding, the passing of the detainee would come quite close to hours or even days because of lack of hydration, contaminations, suffocation, or heart failure. Also, the body would be left balancing in the open as nourishment for scrounger creatures on very embarrassing and horrible demise. Damnatio ad bestias, the discipline of wild monsters these days. For you to pass on from a wild creature assault, you would need to wander into the profundities of the woods, ocean, desert, or possibly a zoo. Also, it would presumably be an unplanned occasion. However, in old Rome, there was an execution that comprised unequivocally in taking care of hazardous wild creatures with your body. It was likewise a scene, better said, they tossed you to the lions explicitly in Rome. It showed up as a scene in the Colosseum and amphitheaters before the games or festivities. This method of execution was thought of as embarrassing. In this way, it was saved exclusively for slaves, detainees of war, foes of the in the middle of between the 1st and 3rd hundred years A.D. For the main Christians, it was typically held in the early hours of the day, which was when there were more onlookers to observe such massacre. The sentenced man was set in the middle, either attached to a post or organized with little security and a wooden sword for protection, and at times they were even compelled to play the personality of a fanciful being, whose predetermination was anticipated to be supper. When the monsters were disturbed to make them more risky, they were delivered into the field where they tore the denounced to pieces and devoured their tissue. Seldom did the individual figure out how to overcome the monster. Notwithstanding charge lines and various sorts, bears, wolves, and crocodiles were utilized in executions by damnatio ad bestia. Indeed, even the Carthaginian general creature defied the Romans caught by the Punic conflicts with elephants. Any creature equipped for piercing, pulverizing, or destroying a person would do the punishment of the sack, the most terrible Roman discipline. What could be the most terrible Roman sentence above execution or being eaten by monsters? What about being secured in a pack with live enraged creatures and afterward tossed into the ocean? Perhaps it doesn't sound so terrible considering they wouldn't have the option to fit a lion in a sack with such ease. Along these lines, it would presumably be less hazardous creatures that would be in there with you. However, we can scarcely say that this capital punishment would be considerably more endurable. The pena cullae, or punishment of the sack, was held for the awful wrongdoing of patricide, those unreasonable kids who thought for even a moment to end the existence of their folks would be considered by Roman culture to be the most terrible rubbish in presence. Yet there was no discipline on the off chance that it were the opposite way around. Since the Roman dad had outright command over his family, including the existence of every one of its individuals, the individual who committed this offense would be beaten and whipped until the whole body was checked, following which he was dressed exclusively in a wolf's skin cap and wooden shoes prior to being set in the calfskin sack. Inside, somewhere around 4 creatures were that not just had the capability of harming the censure, yet in addition had an emblematic reason. Initial, a snake was presented, which addressed the patricide. Then, at that point, a chicken considered a valiant creature equipped for confronting a lion, followed by a monkey, which was viewed as a cartoon of a man. Lastly, a canine, since it was viewed as a messy creature. These little monsters would be the killers and mates of the sentenced in the destructive excursion to the ocean, which could last a couple of moments or hours, time in which the frantic creatures in their endeavor to escape would chomp, scratch, and peck the person in question, some of the time killing him prior to arriving at the ocean. On the off chance that the stepping stool didn't occur, the water would without a doubt suffocate him and would ultimately consolidate every one of the bodies, leaving them unrecognizable, covered alive. We have all heard shocking tales about individuals who were inadvertently covered alive because of an odd sickness that briefly switched off the imperative signs to a vague level, yet insufficient for the individual to bite the dust. These cases are not all that old. What's more, as notice, are the consequence of a mix-up, rather to ladies who were essential for the Roman Vestal virgins, priestesses, who devoted body and soul to the goddess of fire and home Vesta. This would be the most obviously terrible discipline they could confront. They were viewed as hinds of the goddess and girls of Rome. Thus, they were prohibited to have relations with any man. What's more, on the off chance that this occurred, they would initially whip the man had considered contacting them, since it was taboo to shed the blood of a Vestal virgin. In a little while, Tarquinius Priscus, 5th sovereign of Rome, concocted a sentence to rebuff those hinds of Vesta who became lost. The discipline comprised of securing them in a little underground room with just a couch, a light, and enough food to get by. Several days, it was trusted that assuming they were guiltless, they would be saved by their goddess. Any other way, they would pass on from hunger, alone, and failed to remember. Some of them supernaturally figured out how to get away from their detainment. Albeit the records show just a modest bunch of ladies were censured this way throughout the long term it was implemented. In this way, it was anything but an ordinarily seen discipline. Decimatio, the disciplines of cowards in the Roman army's life in the military, is typically hard. Officers are quick to be presented to risk assuming they need to battle for their country. Also, in spite of the fact that they are prepared to comply and not to flank in any circumstance, each person has a sense that through dread lets us know when it is smarter to escape than to keep confronting such risk. Yet for practically all the civilian army rebel and request, which was a conspicuous capital punishment was an unpardonable offense in both the Roman domain and its commanders viewed as it shocking and meriting model disciplines if these cowards were a significant number, or in some cases the whole legion, a decimatio was applied, which could be deciphered as rebuffing 1 in a 10, as it was all weak miscreants were partitioned into gatherings of 10, of which one was assigned to test as karma by taking a white or dark stone from a concealed sack. Assuming you were adequately fortunate to pick white, you would be saved, while on the off chance that it was dark, you would be pounded into the ground by your own mates. Nobody could decline to complete the discipline or disaster will be imminent. They would likewise go with the sentence individual to the following life. All survivors after the discipline would rest outside the well-being of their camp and be taken care of, just grain a savage, embarrassing, and dispiriting discipline that would leave a weight of cognizance on all armies. As we referenced toward the start, such cruel disciplines have been important for the historical backdrop of all domains and countries, public or in the background. They have forever been available to monitor the majority or to show power before adversaries, regardless of what their intentions are or the way that brutal they are. We will continuously be here to inform you regarding them. At Storytime, assuming you like the video and you're energetic about history and other fascinating realities, we welcome you to subscribe into our channel so you don't miss our new videos.